Hey, what's going on, everybody? I hope you guys can hear me okay. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. So if you are Black and intelligent, then welcome to the family. If you're not Black and intelligent, then you should probably leave. So we are here to talk a little bit about a lot of different things. You guys know we have Powernomics Thursday here, where we get the honor of speaking with Dr. Claud Anderson. Dr. Anderson is the author of the books Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, The Black History Reader, and Dirty Little Secrets 1 and 2. So without further ado, I'd like to ask my friend, Dr. Anderson, how you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm holding there, Doc, and I'm still suffering from that affliction was put on me about 6 months ago. I'm hopeful that I come out of it, but I'm not progressing at all. I'm losing weight, and everything else, but I'm still optimistic that I'm going to come out of it.
All right. Well, we're definitely hoping that it all works out for you, and we're all paying attention. I know everybody that comes by the channel is always asking how you doing and asking me to check on you and everything else. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know that the impact that you have had on the world is so vast and so extraordinary that I see you as one of the keys that's actually opening the door to the revolution that we're seeing right now.
Right.
A lot of people are talking about Black economics, and I believe that it's because your ideas have resonated with a lot of people. And I have spoken regularly about your ideas because your ideas impacted me so much. So can you kind of speak to what you're seeing right now in terms of this awakening? Where you have, sure, you got some marching and protesting, but you also have people talking about ownership, talking about reparations, things like that. What do you see? I mean, do you feel like the world is making progress finally on these issues?
Well, first of all, I commend the group for getting some Black visibility in the country and calling it a Black Lives Matter rather than African American lives matter. So I give them some points for that, and I compliment them for getting out there, putting in the time and energy, trying to grab the attention of the country. But unfortunately, again, I see history repeating itself, Dr. Watkins. We're going back to where we were. We've been through this cycle 2 or 3 times in the past. The same things happen. They're off track. They're off track and they're majoring in the minors, digging into minutiae, messing with things that are more ceremonious, symbolic, and dealing with the real thing they should be focusing on. They really should be focused strictly on trying to correct the primary purpose of slavery on Black folk. But they were off into stuff like police brutality, or come up with new laws about torture, how Blacks are being tortured by the police, all kind of stuff that's way off base. And they're not focusing. They want they want economic equality. And all that stuff would be resolved to go back to the core issue. The core issue is reversing the primary purpose of slavery. You ask one of them right now, what was the primary purpose of slavery? They don't know. It's what was the primary purpose? They don't know that the primary purpose of slavery was to systematically maldistribute 100% of all this nation's wealth, land, minerals, rights, businesses, privileges, and opportunities, controls of all levels of governments in the hands of the dominant white society. That's what they should be focusing on. That's point one, but they missed the point on that. They're not doing it. And so consequently, they're enjoying more of a festivity than anything else. So when I see them on TV, I just about cringe, because right now they start messing around. They lock between the different political parties. Neither one of the parties is going to do anything for Black folk. Republican parties made up of the rooks, the crooks, the rich, and they ain't going to do a damn thing for Black folk. Neither will the Democratic Party, looking out for the meek, the weaks, and the freaks. What you should be doing is trying to figure out how to come together and aggregate your population, your vote, your strength, your resources, and practice powernomics and go strictly vertical. They're getting in these horizontal issues, so I don't see very much progress in that resolve.
Well, you know what, Dr. Anderson, and by the way, everybody, please greet Dr. Anderson as you walk through the door. Put your hashtag B1 in the chat. Do also use the hashtag Powernomics to create a conversation online. Dr. Anderson's website is powernomics.com. Please hit that thumbs up button, share, and subscribe, all these things as you come through the door. So, Dr. Anderson, I want to ask you about this.
Jay Moore. I make one other, hold that point right there. Make one other point that I should have made. And see, plus that they brought in all these other groups into the Black Lives Matter group. They've been integrated. Remember I told you earlier in some of our previous conversations about what happens in the 1960s with Martin Luther King, how they integrated it. It started off in the late 1950s as being a black problem in demand and searching for a black solution. But they messed around and got integrated by the early 1960s, where all of a sudden people like the Kennedys and other politicians then told us, no, Martin Luther, you can't make it unless you integrate. And so they brought in the young white college kids. They brought in the women's movement and everybody else, and the unions and everything else. Same thing is happening now. They're integrating it. Now there's no primary focus on black folk. They're using very broad, ambiguous language, talking about now now they got the gay movement locked into it. And they got the women's movement, like the feminist movement locked into it from the white women. And the white women again did the same thing. Let me make one point. When Martin Luther King jumped into it in 1962 and 63, trying to do something for black folk, and the Kennedy administration said, you gotta integrate this. You can't be just focused on black folk. You can't have a black problem in search of black solutions. We can't have that. You got to water it down. And so when they had President Johnson, again, came out in 1964, which is called the Opportunity Act. Remember that, it's called the Opportunity Act in 1964. What he says now in the Opportunity Act, rather than doing something strictly for blacks, let's make it broader than that. And people say, why are you making it broader? Because what happened, white women jumped into it again. White women went to Congress and demanded that instead of focusing on civil rights for black people, that the civil rights movement, that new bill be focused on women's rights. It switched from civil rights for black folk. White women made it into women's rights for the women's movement. That started in 1964 by white women lobbying Congress and threw everything off track. That's why later on, by 1965, they started working on the civil rights law. They had to throw in do something for women. And that's why they put it that Title IX, again, to focus on women. But they did the same thing, though. Let's go back further than that. They did the same thing in 1968, after blacks came out of slavery. They had passed the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, and the civil rights laws. And guess what? Here again, the focus would have been on a black problem. You got blacks, poor blacks coming out of slavery, owning and controlling absolutely nothing. They've been subordinated, exploited, misused, and abused for 360 years. Guess what? When they came out to pass those laws, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment and the civil rights laws, white women again jumped into it and went to the courts, to the Supreme Court, and says, you can't do something and let blacks be equal to white women. And so again, they wouldn't file a lawsuit. The Supreme Court issued a ruling in 1870 saying, no, you cannot come in and subordinate this thing over black folk. And that was right in the middle, put these two heads, between 1866 with the civil rights laws and 1875. In that interim period, that was called Reconstruction, a 10-year period of Reconstruction. And what the white women did, they killed Reconstruction with that whole thing about putting women in 1870, right in the center of it. And again, to take the focus off of Dr. Watkins, off of black folk. And the North, that's why black folk wound up going right back into Jim Crow semi-slavery. And I'll talk about it later about when you talk about reparations. When that happened, they started giving everything to the South, to the Southern Confederates, who were the first terrorists in America. They wound up getting benefits, getting reparations, when it should have gone to black folk for the 40 acres and a mule and $100. It got switched off track with the white women pushing that whole thing to take it off focus in the midst of Reconstruction. Reconstruction, I mean, reconstruct what you've been doing. You've been doing something against black folk for 360 years. Reconstruct, redo it. And white women brought in sexism and threw it off track. And then the South followed with the Southern Confederate terrorists picked up, and guess what happened? Instead of blacks getting 40 acres of a mule, white Southerners got all the land back. All the land, they got an amnesty bill through then, which means all the land in the South that they were supposed to have lost because of the Civil War, white folk got all their land back. They got all that plantation land back. They took everything back that was supposed to go to black folk during Reconstruction. And white women led it.
So you think, Dr. Anderson, that even now with this recent movement, that there's going to be so many horizontal issues brought into it that it's going to
That's
dilute
right. That's
the
right.
original purpose.
Yeah.
What do you? I'd like to ask everybody who's watching. Give me a yes or no. Have you felt that this movement has been diluted, or that there are people that are pushing other agendas? And I think that's important to understand, because I talked to a guy who admires you a lot. I'd love for you to talk to him one day when you feel up to it. Jay Morrison. Jay Morrison's down in Atlanta, and he actually did something pretty nice. He actually created one of the first mutual funds, real estate investment funds in the Black community. He raised about $10 million, and they bought buildings and property and land and things like that. And he's a huge admirer of Powernomics, a huge supporter of it. And so one of the things that Jay did was he got together with some people, and I supported this as well. And they created a political party called the Black Rights Party. And I read the agenda. So I'd like to get your take on that, because I read the agenda, and the agenda, it seems to me that what they are trying to do, which I really like, is they're trying to spin off and carve off a piece of this bigger movement to say, thank you, Black Lives Matter, for what you've done. Thank you for driving us from point A to point B. Now we're going to get off of your bus, and we're going to drive our own car in the direction we need to go. We're not riding the Black Lives Matter bus any further, because we know Black Lives Matter can't really be trusted in terms of pulling in all the other secondary agendas that they might have. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Anderson?
Well, right. I don't know the gentleman, but I appreciate what you're saying, and I congratulate him for being that keen, be aware, and that's in his sophistication, political sophistication. Because see, throughout history, the reason Black folk have not progressed, and the average Black right now sitting any place on this earth should say to himself, why is it that Black folk have been on the bottom, enslaved, Jim Crow segregated, misused, abused, and denied, neglected for 460 years? That ain't no damn accident, Dr. Watkins. That ain't no accident. It's because every time something like you talking about now, about the Black Lives Matter, every time an issue comes up that focuses on Black folk, whites got a model they use that goes all the way back to the founding of the country. It says never focus on Black folk. So when they do, use a very broad, ambiguous terms. Use very broad, ambiguous terms and make it broad so nobody can find Blacks in it. And that was started in 1879 with the drafting of the United States Constitution in Philadelphia, where all the members that was called out to participate in the drafting of the Constitution. They say we got to have some way of defining how we're going to keep Blacks as slaves and yet give everybody else freedom. And they say use very broad, ambiguous terms so nobody knows what's going on. So that's why right now, every time something comes up, you start talking about poor schools as an instance. For us, let's take that as poor schools. The minute you talk about poor schools, poor schools are bad for Blacks and browns. See, they're gonna throw in the browns. They can always throw in something else with you. Well, how about poor Blacks? Well, we got poor Blacks and poor whites. They can always bring up something to dilute and water it down to take you astray, and do that intentionally. That's why never in the history of this nation has this country ever, and has any political party ever, has any political candidate ever done something strictly and solely for Black folk. That's why you're still enslaved. That's why you're in secondary, you're a subordinated class now. You're a permanent underclass. Nobody's gonna let you out. They're gonna always gonna mix it with a whole bunch of other people. So right now, you're gonna bring in the white kids. They're gonna talk about socialism. We need to have some socialism. We need to talk about police brutality against everybody. We got to come up with police reform for everybody. But the law started out in the Second Amendment just whipping Black folks' asses. They stay away from the Second Amendment. They do all these things to make sure that there are policies and rules that are followed. They were in there when I was running campaigns. That's when I was with President Carter. They were in there when I was with President Clinton. They haven't changed. So right now, they're mixing everything so that you cannot find something strictly and solely for Black folk. What is the agenda for Black folk out of Black Lives Matter? What is specific for Black folk that they're gonna do? That's what you should be asking. That deals strictly with the problem. The problem is that you do not own and control anything of any magnitude. You don't control anything, you don't own anything. You're carrying 16 times your fair share of anything in dealing with poverty. You got, if you talk about the virus, you're gonna have 6 or 7 Blacks die for every one white person died. when they talk about poverty, you got 38% of all the black people in America are beneath the poverty line. 34% of all the black kids are beneath the poverty line. When you talk about unemployment, you're going to have something like about 51% again of the blacks in America and what's called institutionalized structural unemployment. You start talking about jails, imprisonment. 96% of all the prisoners are black men, and 51% of all the prisoners in general are black, and 96% of black men, not black women. Women only make 4 or 5% of the prison population. They're always going to dilute it on you because you haven't got any leadership. The black leadership is looking for social acceptance, just like Martin Luther King got tricked into looking for social acceptance, talking about we want social integration. Instead, he should have been focused on economic integration. So they're always going to mistreat and take you off track. So that's why I said initially that the Black Power, the Black Lives Matter thing is off track. They're not focused strictly on solely on black folk because they got too many other people in there. You got too many cooks in the damn kitchen making the soup.
Interesting. So I want to ask everybody who's watching, give me a yes or no. Do you trust Black Lives Matter as a movement? Give me a yes or no in the chat. I'd like to know what you guys think because I think that that it's important to accept the possibility that this movement was a little different, right? That this movement had a little more fire to it than what we've seen, at least in the last 20, 30 years. I have, Dr. Anderson, I have actually for the first time seen white folks really kind of going out of their way to understand, systematic racism. I don't know if it's temporary, I don't know if it's permanent, but they're trying to support black businesses, or people have talked about, and I give you credit for this. I give Powernomics credit for this. People are talking about the importance of ownership, black people having businesses, black businesses getting supported, things like that. So I think that there's hope there, right? There's a possibility, but I think at the same time, where we got to be careful, and I'd like to get your take on this, is a lot of this might be driven by maybe some white guilt in there, and white folks just feeling like, okay, let us do a little something to not feel so bad about what our country has done to black people. And I don't believe that white guilt can create black empowerment. I don't think we can become powerful if we're leaning on the good graces of other people, leaning on integration, because now corporations are saying we're going to go and hire more black people, we're going to bring more black folks in. And I think that's good for some people that don't have any options, but I think that it's a danger when we actually just find more comfort within the integration of system as opposed to making sure we explicitly build institutions of our own. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yes, typically, as I said, they're going to broaden the issue, then how they're going to respond to it. They say, okay, now we recognize that we've been brutalizing, subordinating, excluding, and mistreating, maltreating blacks for 460 years. But how are we going to deal with it? What they'll say, okay, let's issue first of all, a bunch of rhetoric, pious rhetoric, saying, oh, it was so bad, it was horrible, we shouldn't be doing those kind of things, we should be nice to the black folk. First thing they do is, number one, they're going to issue a lot of pious statements about morality and how they should. Then they're going to say, follow that by point two, we should all in this together. They're going to tell you about why we all together as a nation. Even though black folk have never been together with them in 460 years, you've been under the bottom, outside, underneath the system. That's why you don't own and control a damn thing. That's the second thing they do. They said, we're all together. Third thing they're going to do, they're going to then they're going to set up a few corporations. They come in and say, well, we're going to set up some for charitable organizations to deal with black folk, to talk with them, to exercise them, to take the steam out of black folk. Then the last thing, and then the fourth thing, fifthly, they turn around and say, let's put up a few dollars into a fund to see if we can get a few blacks to do something that's basically non-profit. So they go through a whole sequence of steps to make sure they never touch the basic thing, that they're not in the private sector and you're not going to actually own and control anything. And the last thing they do is appoint a few blacks. They go pick some token blacks, put them in a high level position, either in a corporation, and put them in charge of things like the vice president of issuing toilet paper. Or he's a vice president of some major white corporation. Watch, they always say, let's elevate black all the way up to the top, but never to the real top. That must be subordinated to some white person. They can be we making a vice president of this or the adjunct for this, but they'll never take them all the way up. And the last thing they also do is they put a few dollars into historical black colleges. And guess what? That doesn't offend white folk. You know why? Because they passed some policies way back when I wrote the first affirmative action plan since slavery for black folk. They decided at that time to issue a proclamation saying, we're going to convert all historical black colleges to being no more nor no less than what? Small white colleges. They must change their curriculum where they're teaching the same thing the white colleges are teaching, but they're teaching it to black kids, but with a less of an emphasis, so they'll be non-competitive. The only 2 times in this history of this nation they ever tried to make something that's strictly solely black, when the first one was Howard University. They made Howard University for blacks, that was for black kids. You go over to Howard now and see it's probably integrated, I would guess maybe 30% of the damn kids now are not even blacks. But they're always gonna tie blacks into Hispanics, and black folks should be offended. You should be saying, why in the hell, when Hispanics weren't even in the country when blacks were enslaved? You got about 4,000 Hispanics in the entire United States. They weren't even called Hispanics then, but before the Civil War. But now they're going to link everything to blacks. You talk about education, they're going to link blacks with blacks and browns, blacks and Hispanic kids in school. And same thing with Asians. You didn't have not one Asian in the entire United States, but now they're going to bring in Asian, link you with Asians by using the very broad term called minorities. Then they're going to bring in the Arabs and link them in by classifying it based on culture. By then saying, well, basically we're going to be multicultural now. And so, but all these are horizontal issues. Anything that pertains to religion, to sex, to what political party you belong to, or anything like that, those are horizontal issues. For black folk to survive and compete in our society, the only choice they got is to go vertical. Always go vertical. Horizontal is a weakness. It's always been a weakness. Anybody that understand political societies know that horizontal societies are weak societies. A strong society goes straight up from the bottom to the top, where you come together and pool all your resources and you go straight up. And you'll find all this stuff you'll find a lot of these things in the book, in the Powernomics book that you have. There's a page that tell you about vertical integration. And that's what Powernomics is. Coming together, pooling your resources, building your own communities, and then build your own and buy from your own people, make your money bounce 6 to 8 times in your own hands with your own people and go straight up. Never talk about integration until you get to the top. Once you get to the top, you got a good, strong political base, you got an economy, you got some industries. Have you ever been curious as to why there's no black industries in America? They didn't have no black industries. You know why? Because when the Industrial Revolution went through Europe, blacks were slaves in the 1700s. Blacks triggered the Industrial Revolution in Europe. When the Industrial Revolution came to America in the 1800s, blacks were still slaves. That's why whites own all the major industries. That's why those red states that you see on the political map, all those are the southern states and the western states. Those are the states that wound up getting all the land and resources. They gave 2 billion, not million, starting with a B, they gave out 2 billion acres of free land to whites coming to the country. And then black folk couldn't get 40 acres. That's so you don't own and control anything. Do you see the Black Lives Matter focusing on that? No, you don't. They're going into marching through white neighborhoods, burning the businesses down. Where are your businesses? Where's your community? You haven't got a damn community. Nobody, they're off track. They should be focused on rebuilding black communities, rebuilding black industries, going vertical with businesses, going vertical in politics. They're not doing it. And here's the last concluding point. I've had 2 calls yesterday, people calling from around the country saying, Dr. Anderson, and one of them is a very popular guy who's one of the big musicians in the country. He called another, he had a surrogate that called me and asked me if I would give him some suggestions. He got a meeting coming up with Biden. Want to know what should he ask Biden to do for black folk. And I told him, first of all, I'm not going to do that. I would not tell somebody else how to deal with with a person that's running for political office like that. I've been in politics too long at the highest levels of politics in this country, around the world. I do not fatten frogs for snakes. You understand what I'm saying? I don't fatten frogs for snakes. Don't come to me and ask me, I'm representing Biden, and tell me some things that I could tell this black personality who wants to meet with Biden, what to ask Biden for. I said, I don't do that. If Biden wants to know what I would do for black folk, you tell him to call me. I don't deal with surrogates. I don't fatten frogs for snakes. I've been in politics longer than, and I was in politics way in the White House way before Biden even got there. When I was running campaigns for presidents and governors, attorney generals, state legislators, and mayors, way before Biden got into it. I ain't gonna go, that's an insult to me to come ask me to tell you what to do so you can go tell Biden. No, homie, don't do that kind of stuff.
Mm. Well, you know what's funny, Dr. Anderson, about that is, and actually before I say that, I want to tell everybody I'm talking to Dr. Claud Anderson. His website, everybody, is powernomics.com. That's where you can get his books. That's powernomics.com. You can get all of his books and a whole library pack for just $99, which comes with 5 books and a DVD. So somebody type in powernomics.com. Please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't done it, please hit the thumbs up button. Also tonight, we're doing a Black movie night. You guys know we're building a Black-owned movie industry. We're supporting Black filmmakers and entertainers. So you can come to Black Movie Night for free. Just register RSVP at blackmovienight.net. That's blackmovienight.net. So Dr. Anderson, let me jump in and pop in and talk about what you just said. It's real interesting. You know, I agree with you that when you're talking about who these politicians are even speaking to, right? You know, when they come to the Black community, I think it's an insult that they'll go talk to a singer, a rapper, or an actor, and won't actually go talk to, you know, a professor, a political scientist, people that actually understand things. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, maybe my question is, does you know, in the white community, the Jewish community, do they send their most famous actors and rappers to represent the community? Do tell me, you guys give me a yes or no. Give me a yes or no on this. You know, in other communities, in the Asian community, they say we want to find the most famous Asian singer, and that's going to represent our community. Do they do that? No, that's an insult, because here's the thing. You're right. I know that if Biden or somebody on his team were to call you, you would talk to him and you would give him a blueprint. You probably even talk to the Trump people, you know, and I think that they should call you. I think anybody in the White House should be calling people like you to get those. And there are other smart Black people in DC that can contribute to the conversation as well. And I think that the fact that they will go to a rapper means that they don't respect you. They don't respect Black folks. The fact that they'll keep going to Al Sharpton, you know, and ignore all the other smart Black people in the community that can add to the conversation is an absolute insult. Obama himself met with Al Sharpton 40, 50 times, never reached out to you once. You know, so to me, if you're not trying to talk to serious people, then you're not really trying to have a serious conversation. Right. You're doing some gaslighting. So let me ask you this too. Let me mention this point, and then I'd like to get your thoughts on this. I'm not even gonna frame it as a question. I'm just gonna give you another thought that went through my mind. I take notes when you talk. I just want y'all to know when he's my teacher too. So when Dr. Anderson's talking, I'm taking notes, you know, my thoughts. The other thought that I had too, the danger of Black Lives Matter to me is that when you let somebody else pay your bills, you're gonna be subject to their agenda. When you let somebody else give you a ride, then you're going to be in their car. You're going to go where they want you to go. And while I think it's important that we can separate our appreciation for George Soros and all the other white folks who created Black Lives Matter, you know, thank them for what they've done, drawing attention to important issues. There's a point where you have to get off their bus and say, thank you, we'll take it from here. Because here's the problem. When you align yourself with Black Lives Matter, and it's easy to do that because we all agree that Black Lives Matter, right? So that's like, if you say the statement, it's a catchy phrase, right? But I separate specifically my agreement with the term Black Lives Matter from my unconditional support of the organization Black Lives Matter. Why is that? Well, because I know how white liberals work and the way white liberals operate, and conservatives too, I'm sure. I'm just not a conservative. I'm not in the Republican Party. But the way they operate is if we give you something, if we take care of you on this issue, you got to take in all these other issues. Because I'm gonna tell you, there's nobody more oppressive than a white liberal when you tell that white liberal that you don't agree with something that they believe in, right? And the white liberal package is pretty consistent. I have an acronym for it, Dr. Anderson. It's the word FAIL, FAIL, FAIL. FAIL stands for feminism, abortion, immigration, and LGBT. It's like clockwork. After they finish talking about police brutality and black people being shot by the cops, the very next thing they're going to dump on right on top of your head is they're going to say, oh, well, you know, we believe in feminism and all the stuff, that the baggage that comes with the Me Too movement, all the black men they just dying to lock up, you know, on just an accusation, all this other stuff. They believe in abortion. A lot of black people don't want to abort their kids, and they put, we know the history, they put those abortion clinics in black communities so that those babies don't get a chance to be born. Immigration. Illegal immigration does not benefit black people. You stupid to me if you just believe that stuff and don't actually take a second to process what you're actually supporting. You're supporting the dilution of your vote. You're supporting the dilution of your economic power. And then when you talk about the LGBT issue, I don't have anything against gay people at all. I do not care what another man, another woman, or a woman does in the bedroom. But when you're pushing an agenda, then that's when I have a problem, because you're forcing it onto people that are not interested in that nonsense. So what I would just say, Dr. Anderson, is that when you use that acronym FAIL, feminism, abortion, immigration, LGBT, it seems that they almost like they're almost like a guy that takes a pretty girl out for a date and said it takes her to a nice steak dinner and then says, okay, now that I have bought you a steak dinner, you owe me some ass. And I don't want to owe nobody no ass because I got some stuff to do. So I'll pass on the steak dinner. What do you think, Dr. Anderson?
Well, you're right on target. But and what you're saying in summary is that, see, black folk have never been any more nor any less than what white folk have wanted them to be. That's the bottom line. They have never been any more nor any less than what whites want them to be. And that's why if you talk about these movements, it's being guided. And black folk have never fully understood what conservatism is in the country versus liberal. There's about that much difference between conservatism and liberalism. A conservative would blow your brains out and bury you, and a liberal come by and put flowers on the damn grave. They ain't no difference. Conservative would sink your ship, and the liberals try to rearrange the damn ship, chairs on the deck as the ship goes down. So they don't get caught up in those damn terms. Secondly, I have never yet found very many blacks, even black people who've been the victim 460 years of slavery. I never found one that can tell me what racism was. Everybody used the word racism and try to use it to make it amorphous and ambiguous and apply it to everybody. Racism only applies in a relationship between whites and blacks. It has nothing to do with in Asians. You cannot. There's no racism in dealing with Asians. There's no racism in dealing with Arabs. There's no racism in dealing with Hispanics. 70% of the Hispanics up until 1970, when I wrote the affirmative action plan for the state of Florida, were classified as whites. Right now, almost 99% of all Hispanics are still classified as whites. How you gonna talk about we're people of color? What the hell are you talking about? You talk about we got to look out for all people, including people who are people of color, Asians and Arabs and Hispanics. Nobody's ever enslaved them. Those are cultural groups. Those are language groups. Those are religious groups. Those are not race groups. That's not a race. And you have to go back again and understand history. History is tremendously important if you're going to figure out how to bring blacks out of this ditch in the very near future. Otherwise, we're never going to come out. This is the last opportunity, in my estimation, blacks will ever have to get out of a ditch. They're in the bottom of a ladder. It's like those fingers there. Blacks on the bottom down here, the bottom rung, and everybody else is over. You got white, yellow, brown, black. Now, on that ladder. So they say, are blacks better off, Dr. Anderson? If you pull the ladder up, they're better off. So because they're on the bottom, you move up, they're still on the same, in a ranking order of acceptability in the country. They're on the lower rung. just moving the ladder up doesn't resolve blacks' problem. Let me give you a last point on that. Then I'm gonna let you take it over because we're gonna come to a conclusion pretty soon. Let's take the other thing tied to the Black Lives Matter. Now they went more. They morphed right out of that into Juneteenth. Right into Juneteenth. I said, who in the hell got more than a third grade education? We celebrating Juneteenth. Nobody in their right mind will be celebrating Juneteenth. What's the substance behind it? Besides symbolism and ceremonious, something that's a waste of time, insignificant, and then do a damn thing for black folk. But they go out and celebrate it. Now, I tried to correct that way back by proposing for black folk what I call a Harvest Festival Day that comes every year in August and the second Saturday all over America for black folk. That is totally different from having a Harvest Festival Day and a Juneteenth celebration. Let's go back and let me talk very quickly about Juneteenth. Now here's black folk again, as I said, off track as usual. Juneteenth, what is Juneteenth? Well, Juneteenth came out of the Emancipation Proclamation. That's what they've been told through miseducation. And that's Juneteenth. That came from Abraham Lincoln being advised on January 1, 1863. On January 1, 1863, was advised to put out an Emancipation Proclamation. You know, who advised him to do that? It was the vice president. The vice president was Hannibal Hamlin. You know who that was? That was one of my so-called relatives. He was the vice president of the United States at that time. Hannibal Hamlin. It was one on the white side of the family, way down the line, and he believed. And guess what? He advised Lincoln not to do it. He said, instead of doing it, putting out a fake false Emancipation Proclamation, why don't you really put out something talking about freeing slaves? Because that Emancipation Proclamation did not free not one black slave in America. It was a ruse. It was put out. It was propaganda put out by the rest of Lincoln's administration to try to generate discord between the black slaves and the black slave owners. And secondly, was trying to incite and elevate the Union soldiers to give them a stronger feeling for fighting at that particular time, saying, give them some motivation, trying to motivate the Union soldiers. But the Emancipation Proclamation was put out in June 1, 1863. That had nothing to do with helping black folk. And that was, matter of fact, there had been 5, Dr. Watkins. We've had 5 in the history of this country. We've had 5 Emancipation Proclamations dealing with freeing black folk. Did you know that?
No.
We've had 5.
Yeah, tell me more, because I don't know. You guys, let me know if you know this, but so you saying the Emancipation Proclamation wasn't what people say that it is? What was it? Well, what was it exactly? Why wasn't effective?
It was a propaganda piece for 2 reasons. First of all, because it was saying you're free, but and if you're a slave, he was trying to set them free in the southern states where blacks were slaves, but he did nothing for the blacks in the north who were slaves. If he were very serious, he would have done something to free the blacks and that he had some control over. See, he represented the north. We had slaves all over the north. But the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1, 1863 was talking about blacks only. That were the slaves in the south and in the west. And he had no control over them. How are you going to free somebody when you have no control over them? You're at war with the South. How are you going to tell the South your slaves are free when you have no control of them? You're fighting in a damn war. That was all propaganda, as I said, to give some emotional uplifting to the Union soldiers in the North who were fighting, and to try to create discord between the black slave owners in the South and the black slaves. Now that's what that was about. Just to try to create turmoil, but as far as the Juneteenth, and this what date did I give you just then? I gave you January what?
I think I thought it was January 1.
Yeah, January 1, 1863. Now keep that in mind, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I'm just giving you the numbers. Now let's jump up to Juneteenth. Now Juneteenth was what blacks are celebrating was blacks getting the word that the war had, that, you know, that they were free. And guess what? And that was way back in August of what year? 1865. That's over 2.5 years away. How in the hell, from the Emancipation Proclamation to where the word got into Galveston, Texas, and black folk found out that the war had ended in May. The war ended, Civil War ended in May, but the word finally leaked out. And by the time it got back out to Texas, about a month or so later, that's when the word got out that they said, we're free, we're free. Nobody, the emancipation didn't free you. The damn war ended because the South lost. Your ass drifted, you were collateral free, you got a collateral freedom. Now, I keep saying, now, wait a minute. Why would anybody be mixing these apples and apples? So it keeps black folks confused, totally confused. And I spent all my life trying to research and say, look, please understand history, the nature of history. That's why I wrote those 5 books in the library pack. And I said, there are 2 problems I found out with black people. And I tell black folk all the time, that's something I learned at a very early age, that there's no one blinder than someone who, Dr. Watkins, who refused to see. No one is blinder than those who refuse to see, okay? Nor is anyone dumber than those who refuse to learn. And those are powernomics principles. Nobody's dumber than those who just won't see, refuse to see, and nobody's dumber than those who just simply refuse to learn. And I'm gonna study like Juneteenth. Now, how you gonna take Juneteenth and Black Lives Matter and put those together and say, here's what we got. We got all these marches. I said, but that's all bullshit. You're confusing issue. Why don't you go back and focus strictly on blacks? Quit trying to bring everybody into the picture. Demand something specifically designed to correct the whole purpose of slavery, which was to deny black folk every damn thing, to where they wind up nowadays, right now, where you deny them the wealth. Black folk right now own less than 1% of all the wealth in America. The richest nation on the earth, black folk owns less than 1%. There's nothing in this country that blacks own greater than 0.5% of anything of value. So if you're gonna march now, and why are you marching? How are you gonna get something? And you start about reparations, and that's a whole nother issue we haven't got time to discuss today. But everybody's gotten reparations but black folk. Because you see, the reason black folk haven't gotten it because they don't understand history again, is that people that get reparations are people who had gone to war with the United States. That's who gets reparations. Anybody who's been to war with the United States. And in this country, that's called, white folks see black folk as being guests in the country. You're a guest because they know how they make you a guest by telling you that this is a nation of immigrants. They don't tell you though, on the other hand, and my books would have told, these books were in the school system like they should be, that black folk are the only non-immigrants in the country. The only non-immigrants. Everybody else is an immigrant. You know what immigrants are? Immigrants are guests. So white folk right now in the southern states and in the Revolutionary Wars and all the other wars, white folks assume patriotism as being white skin. And anything that's not white skin is not patriotic. And black folk, and they say themselves as being immigrants. But here's the point. Never have they ever told you at any time in the history of this nation that what immigrants are is this. Remember this, Dr. Watkins. Immigrants are freeloaders. Did you hear what I said? Immigrants are freeloaders. Every immigrant that came to America came here to freeload. That's why blacks are not immigrants. Blacks are the only group that came here not to freeload, but to work and provide benefits and opportunities for everybody else but themselves. Black folk, the only people who came here, worked hard for 460 years to enrich everybody but themselves. But any immigrant in this country, every white person in this country is a freeloader. When they sit here want to talk about, I'm against reparations, your ass came here to get freeloaded. You should ask your mother and father or your great grandparents why they come to America. If they tell you the truth, they didn't come here looking for no damn religious opportunities. They could have gone any place in Europe and the woods and the trees and the bushes and the creeks, and they could have worshiped. They came here because somebody told them, you go to America, you can get all the benefits that have been denied black folk. You can get free land, free everything, and free Indian land and free black labor, all you want. You can become rich overnight. You cannot go to America and not become rich. Every white person came here. Every Arab that's come here. Every Asian that's come here. Every Hispanic that's come here. Even those that come rushing in now, illegals, they're coming here to get free benefits. At the same time, they're telling black folk, you're not entitled to any benefits. You're not entitled to reparations. But yet everybody else came here for reparations. And one day I'll go through and articulate all of them in history that gotten reparations except black folk. And everybody who's ever attacked this country, gone to war with this country, has gotten reparations, including all the southern states, all the Confederate states, all the first terrorists in America that was in the southern states and the western states. They all got reparations. Everybody's got reparations but black folk. Because again, black folk don't understand history. They don't understand these issues. They don't make the issues. They don't make the points when they're dealing with white folk in a public spectrum. And that's why, and then white women making their issues about sexism. Hell, white women got everything that the white man got. She lived in the same house with him, slept in the same bed with him, put her feet on the same table. She inherited almost 100% of everything the white man had during slavery and Jim Crow segregation. She got everything. She's talking about somehow that's a horizontal issue identifying on sexism, but that's a white woman's issue. One day we'll discuss that too. I'll quit right there because I'm lecturing to you, and I don't mean to do that. I apologize. I don't mean to lecture to you.
No, we appreciate it.
You're smarter. You're smarter than I am on this stuff. But please excuse me for that.
No, I appreciate this. Let Dr. Anderson know that you appreciate him. Say something in the chat, everybody. Let him know. Tell him thank you. And just when you come in here, you don't have to agree with everything that's here, but you need, as he mentioned before, the dumbest person in the world is one who does not want to learn. The blindest person in the world is the one who does not want to see. And you guys know when you come into this platform, with the reason we let you guys know this is the platform for intelligent black people is because I need you to be open-minded. I need you to want to see. It's okay if you can't see. I just need you to be able to have your eyes open, so you can see what you need to see, right? And you need to be willing to learn. Dr. Anderson, I'd rather talk to a dumb person who wants to learn than a so-called smart person who thinks they know everything. Right. Ain't nothing worse than a dumbass who thinks they know everything because they've been taught all the wrong information.
That's right.
And we have a lot of dumbasses in the black community because they went to some big white university and they think they know everything and they don't want to learn, and so and I'll say this, and this is one of the reasons why I recommend you guys take a look at powernomics.com and read Dr. Anderson's books, is because the first book I read from Dr. Anderson was Black Labor, White Wealth. Now, mind you, if anybody could pretend like they knew everything, it was me. I'd had my PhD for 7 or 8 years before I read that book. So, I could have been like, well, I know everything. I'm not listening to this nonsense. But I read that book, Dr. Anderson, and I felt like I was a 12-year-old again. I felt like I said, okay, I got to go back and revisit everything these white folks have been teaching me that was wrong and form a new framework that makes sense. And the reason I had to be open to that was because what I had been taught was not working. What they taught us in school, like, oh, this is how black people can achieve this and achieve that. It was a bunch of bullshit. And I said, wait, we're doing everything right, but it ain't coming together. Anybody else ever felt like that? Like you feel almost like that movie, The Matrix, that's the guy just said, I always felt like there was something else out there. So Dr. Anderson's books help you break out of the matrix and rewrite history in a way where black people are the winners of this history and the truth is exposed to you. Just all the things you've told us about slavery and the things we were never taught, that's invaluable. I don't think black folks today even know how bad slavery was and the terrors that our people went through in Jim Crow because they whitewashed so much of that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So
white folk would not, no white person would write a book about slavery of any magnitude until 1948. Okay. You only got a few black books that got out, like Carter G. Woodson and a few others got out before 1948. But no white folks would not write. So therefore, any literature, any information you want to find out about slavery, you have to find it through internet old records by going and checking receipts of labors or bills or ladens or anything. Nobody would write about black folk. White folk wouldn't let you write about it. No newspaper put anything positive about black folk. But see, I devoted all my life to 60 years to trying to research. And that's why when I went with governors, I went with presidents, a couple of presidents and two governors ran races because they said, Dr. Anderson, you're one of the few blacks that we ever found that went out of your way to conscientiously study and be a forensic analyst and understanding race matters. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna do that because I love Black folk. And I'm not gonna let anybody further cripple Black folk emotionally and educationally by giving them useless information and putting them in some damn marching down the street. I don't care whether a Freedom Now march or whether it's a Civil Rights march or it's a Black Lives Matter march. And you got a bunch of blacks. I say, anytime you got a march nowadays in a race matter, it's not really a march. You know what it is? It's a parade. We don't have marches in race matters. You have parades. And in the parade, you got a bunch of clowns out front. Watch your mouth and watch who's out front, who's twisting their butt and dancing. One has half their hair is colored green, other half pointed red, and got a black streak down the front of it. See, all they want to do is get attention. I said, don't be getting attention. Get some attention, get some positive attention from our people. And I devoted my whole life, and I'm old now, and I'm into my last years. I cannot stand for anybody to keep mistreating and beating up on Black folk. And I'm gonna spend my rest of my days fighting again, trying to give you information that took me 60 years at the highest level of governments, with presidents, with governors. And I was over the educational state of Florida. I'm the Black sat as a chairman for economic development for governors. I was also in charge of what's the property disposal program for the United States government. I've tried everything at the highest levels, and I appreciate those opportunities. And now I'm gonna try to use what I learned to teach the Black folk how to survive and to be competitive people as quickly as I can on this earth. And right now, Black Lives Matter has the momentum, but they're not on target. They're off the road down in the bushes, messing around with all these other groups, messing with horizontal issues. And we gotta do this for Hispanics. We gotta do this. We gotta have police reform. We gotta power. If they understood my building, power, economic power controls the police department. You don't have to have no damn police reform. If you get a community with some wealth and power, you can easily control the police. That's not an issue. See, when I was with the governor's office in Florida, I knew we had 9 grand juries operating out of Dade County. I knew what was going on in all the politics, who the crooks were, who the drug dealers were. When I was with the police department in Detroit, Michigan, and I was a research investigator for the Safe Street and Crime Act. I was out in the police office, the police commissioner under Superintendent Nicholson. I was down there then, even when the riots broke out that night. I've been out going into blind pigs and chasing, checking on drugs and the prostitutes at night. I'd gone through all that. I went through all those things. But everything I wrote for you all, I put it in those books: Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, Two Dirty Little Secrets, and the Black History Reader. I wrote it for Black folk. Please read and understand, and quit letting people psych you out by running off the road. And because personally, I wouldn't follow a civil rights leader or most of the Black elected officials, except one, that's Maxine Waters. That's the only one I have any confidence in with the Congressional Black Caucus. I wouldn't follow them to the bathroom. I'll be afraid I'll get mugged trying to get to the bathroom following them. So, but no civil rights leaders, no Black Congressional Black Caucus, and no Urban League and no NAACP. I have no confidence in those people. They don't have the information base. They don't have the issues. They allow our people to go off the road, and when they can, they'll take our people off the road. And I thank you for giving me that chance to say those things to you.
All right. So everybody, the website for Dr. Anderson is powernomics.com. That's powernomics.com. Somebody please type that in case anybody wants to go get the books. I have all the books, and I have my kids read them, and they're the best books out here. And also, I want to mention to everybody, if you could, please hit the thumbs up button, share, subscribe button, and please tell Dr. Anderson how much you appreciate him. Give him a digital thank you, digital round of applause. Let him know that he is your master teacher. And I know, Dr. Anderson, I know that, a lot of our HBCUs should be having somebody like you coming in. They should be using Powernomics to teach their students. They don't do that, but we do that in the Black Business School. It's probably the most recommended book that we have on our list. And so I want everybody to just sort of know that it's time for us to reshape the education of our people and to reclaim and to take over that. So that's what we're seeking to do. And actually, I don't know if I told you, Dr. Anderson, we just crossed 100,000 students in the Black Business School. I don't know if I told you that, and they're able to get a quality Black business education for, so sometimes some people pay as little as $50, $100, $200, and they're getting more from us than they're getting from universities that are charging them $100,000. And that was the vision. And I believe that that's really changing the world that we live in. And so, and you were an important part of that. And God bless you for everything you do.
Well, one thing that just popped up in my mind was when you and I were together in Philadelphia. Remember that at Kenny Gamble School?
Yeah.
When Kenny Gamble called me about 2 days ago too. Kenny Gamble, he was the man that founded they call the Philly Sound with OJs and all the musicians and stuff.
Yeah, I love Kenny Gamble.
Yeah, he has 2 or 3 charter schools. He said about 4,000 or 5,000 students. He just called me and said, Dr. Ellis, we got to get your books in our schools. He said, I'm going to call you back and say, we can figure out how to get these books. It said, your books should be in not only in all the black schools, they should be in the white schools too. Because these white kids know even less and see most of them talk about racism. They don't know a damn thing about racism, but they just go out mouthing the words. And so consequently, he says that he's going to try to get those books in. Matter of fact, it's supposed to be calling me today. And so, but I appreciate any effort that not for me to sell the books, because we do get discounts to all the schools and stuff that want the books. But I want the Dirty Little Secrets books in the elementary schools, and I want the Black Labor, White Wealth, Powernomics, and Black History Reader into the college and high schools, okay? And I want them to buy those books. And so we can get past this point we made earlier that nobody is blinder than those who refuse to see, and nobody is dumber than those who refuse to learn. So that's a Powernomics model. So you take that and put that in your school, and I want you to put that on your wall. So next time I come to one of your programs, I want to see it on the wall in big letters. Okay.
Yes, sir. Got you. All right. Well, you know what, and I love Kenny Gamble. I just, that's a great man, and God bless him. And I'm glad he made that call, because your book should be everywhere. But it's okay. We're taking over the school system. We educating our own people, and we reach 1 million people a week, on this platform. And that was the goal, is for all of us to have a chance to elevate to whatever level we choose. So thank you guys for hanging out. Please give Dr. Anderson a digital thank you. Hit the thumbs up button before you go. Also, don't forget, tonight at 8 p.m., we are having Black Movie Night. So we're getting together as a community and watching the Black Love Blueprint. We're going to have a great conversation about Black relationships and love. We're going to have award-winning director Dorian Chandler. She's coming through. And Tia Brown, who's a therapist. So basically, you can register right now for free at blackmovienight.net. That's blackmovienight.net. And one more time, Dr. Anderson's site is powernomics.com. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you, Dr. Anderson. I look forward to seeing you next week, buddy.
Right, and thank you again for always, giving credit to the Powernomics books and pushing those for us, and also mention that things that I promote for Black folk. I thank you for the credit you give me, and even though you're about one of the few in the entire United States that says these are some of the things I learned from Dr. Anderson, and I got from his books. Nobody else gives me credit for anything, but that's okay. I can live without it, but it's sad that they do that. That's why they ask blacks, why aren't you on these major programs? Whites don't want me on those programs. They know I'm gonna tell Black folk the truth. Okay.
All right. Well, how about this, everybody? How about we do something real nice how about we shock Dr. Anderson right now? Here's what I want y'all to do. We all a team here. Ain't no real, I'm not standing out here as no leader. I'm just an advisor. And here's what we're gonna do. Okay. I told you guys how, as we build industries and we build systems, we all play a part. There's nobody that's sitting on the sidelines. We all got to be soldiers in this battle. What I would like for all of you to do is right now, promise me, give me a yes in the chat. You can do this. It'll only take you a second. Go to your social media platform, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything you want. And I want you to give some empowering comment about Dr. Anderson or Powernomics. And I want you to use the hashtag Powernomics and put the hashtag B1. Okay. Can you guys do that for me? Give me a yes in the chat if you can do that. So Dr. Anderson, by the time this video is done, there'll probably be, 10, 20,000 people that'll watch it. So you're going to have 10, 20,000 soldiers that are serious, that will go to their platforms and will give the shout out that you deserve and that Powernomics deserves. So we're going to do that right now.
I'm optimistic that you'll be able to do that, because if you are, I'm going to treat you to a lobster dinner the next time you come my way, rather than a steak dinner. That's the deal. because you are a rarity. You are a rarity. You are a special Black person. And people call me from around the country and say, Dr. Anderson, everybody steals your ideas and what you do and all the things you've been doing for Black folk, except Dr. Watkins. He's the only person that ever gives you credit for anything. And I said, I know all these civil rights leaders right now they steal things from it, they use it and put their name to it and brand it and say, I got a Dr. Anderson created an alligator, but I cut the tail off the alligator, painted him in yellow, and called him my dog.
Well, you're Michael Jordan, and maybe I could be Scottie Pippen. How about that?
That's a deal.
So Pippen had an important role, but he never ever thought he was Michael Jordan. So I want y'all to know I'm declaring that right now. He's Batman. I'm gonna be Robin, and maybe one day I'll get a chance to be the Batman. But you wait your turn. That's what a community does. That's what it means to have a hierarchy. That's what it means to have a code. So my code is to respect those who cleared the path for me. And I hope you all agree with that. So if you guys can go and put that on your social media, give me a yes in the chat if you're going to do that. I would really appreciate that. We got to show Dr. Anderson his respect. Use the hashtag Powernomics and the hashtag B1. And I'll see you guys tonight at Black Movie Night, blackmovienight.net. Thanks a lot, Dr. Anderson.
Thank you, buddy. See you next week then.
You soon, my friend. All right. Bye-bye.